Good morning. As many of you know, 1,200 feet below the city of Detroit is one of the largest salt mines in the world, where there are 100 miles of roads that traverse 1,500 acres of salt that you know quite well because it's currently covering your entire car. It's great to have so much salt so close at hand given our weather, and even better if you're ordering French fries or you're dousing a bowl of popcorn while you're watching the Super Bowl and deciding between, is it Big Bunny? Is that it?
Yeah.
Bad Bunny. Yeah. Well, you tell them to watch Kid Rock, right? I'm not getting into that. But in the ancient Near East, salt wasn't just a garnish. It was not a de-icer. It was survival. Before refrigeration, before preservatives with really long chemical names, salt was the only thing standing between a piece of meat and total decay. It was the thin line between nourishment and waste, between Sunday dinner and starvation. Why? As you well know, salt slows the rot. Salt holds things together long enough for life to continue. So when Jesus looks at this small crowd gathered on the hillside for his first sermon and says, "You are the salt of the earth," he isn't offering a compliment so much so that he's saying, "You add a little sparkle to the world." No, he's naming a responsibility. He's handing out a vocation, a calling, a blessed invitation to identity. You are essential, he says. Without you, things fall apart. And this was well understood because Jesus was speaking to people who knew how fragile life was. You remember last week we had the Beatitudes. The Sermon on the Mount begins with the poor in spirit, the mourning, the meek, the hungry, the merciful. People who already know that the world does not hold together on its own. And to those people, Jesus says something almost shocking. You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. They were probably as shocked to hear themselves called that, and as you and I are this morning. And notice what Jesus doesn't say. He doesn't say, try to be salt. He doesn't say, work hard at becoming light. He says, you are. Which means that this isn't about earning a role. It's about living into an identity, which has already been given. When I pull out my passport to go overseas, which these days means Canada, my passport tells me I'm an American. I don't have to try to be an American. I have to feel like I'm American. I just am. Now, it's the same with our identity in Jesus. We are salt. We are light. And what does salt do, as we've established? Salt preserves. Salt preserves life. Salt resists decay. Salt keeps what is good from being lost. And that image lands differently if we're honest about the world that we're living in. Because it doesn't take much imagination to notice that things feel like they're rioting in a lot of places right now. We hear it in the way we talk to each other. Not just strangers online, but coworkers, family members, people we love. Conversations feel thinner, divided, sharper, quicker to break. We see it in how easily whole groups of people get written off. We see it in the ambient cynicism that hangs in the air, convincing us that caring deeply is naive and hope is embarrassing. Cynicism is particularly corrosive because it dresses itself up as realism. It tells us we're just seeing things as they are. But most of the time, cynicism is simply despair that's learned how to sound intelligent. Many people are cynical about gun violence. Oh, well, we'll never stem the tide. There are just too many guns, too many crazy people out there. But on Wednesday, I was at a private meeting with our Attorney General, Dana Nessel. And she said that for some reason, she doesn't know why, but the tally on gun deaths in Michigan for 2025, it's about to be released. And after a year of lobbying by St. David's, by others, a year of working to pass laws and enact gun safety reform, that gun death rate over the last year has gone down by 100 people. 100 people who had Thanksgiving dinner with their loved ones. 100 families that didn't have to attend a funeral. Systems can be changed, friends. We don't have to follow the cynics. Cynicism is not realism. Being salt and light matters. And being salt and light is not a call to stand at a distance and comment on the decay. Our calling is not to narrate the collapse with clever observations. Anybody can do that. Pointing out what's wrong takes very little courage. But we are asked to do something harder. Jesus chose salt and light because they are so common. Everywhere. They stay close. They mix in. They refuse to stand at a distance and to give up on what could still be preserved. That's why this image gets uncomfortably close to the heart of the Christian life. As you know, in the Episcopal Church, we have something called the Baptismal Covenant, and in it we promise to, quote, strive for justice and peace among all people and respect the dignity of every human being. That's not abstract theology. That is preservation work. It's staying in the room when the conversation gets tense and it would be easier to walk away. It's refusing to reduce a human being to a headline, to a label, to a single opinion. It's holding on to hope when the cultural mood has decided that despair is more sophisticated. In fact, we have some salty people in our parish. Oh, I know you all have your own definitions of that word. But we have people who believe different things about politics, economics, diplomacy, human sexuality, and it's their salt that keeps them connected. It's their salt that is illuminating and life-giving. It's because salt says, no, we're not letting this relationship disintegrate if there's something worth saving. Salt says, no, we're not done with this community. Salt says, no, we're not going to let contempt have the final word. Salt has to stay close. It doesn't do its work from a distance. You can't preserve meat by waving salt at it. You have to rub it in. You have to stay close enough for it to matter. Which is precisely why this calling is so uncomfortable. Being salt means proximity. It means staying engaged with people and situations that are messy and complicated and sometimes disappointing. It means resisting the temptation to retreat into purity or disengagement. And Jesus knows that comes with a risk. If salt has lost its saltiness, he says, how can its saltiness be restored? Well, that's a strange warning, because salt, chemically speaking, doesn't lose its saltiness, which suggests that Jesus isn't giving us a chemistry lesson. Jesus is giving us a spiritual lesson. How does salt lose its effectiveness? When it's diluted, when it's mixed with too many other things, when it becomes overwhelmed by much larger amounts of bitterness, of resentment, of contempt that surrounds it. And that's the real danger for the church. Not opposition, not marginalization, but becoming so saturated with the world's cynicism, with the world's apathy, with the world's division, that we no longer offer anything different. If we become just as quick to judge, just as eager to divide, just as addicted to outrage as everyone else, then we aren't preserving anything. We've lost our saltiness. We're just participating. Being salt means you bring a different chemistry into the room. You're the one who slows things down when everything else is escalating. You're the one who preserves dignity when things get ugly. You're the one who insists on truth without cruelty and grace without sentimentality. And that work is not glamorous. Salt works quietly. Salt is not showy. Salt is not turmeric. Salt is not trendy. Salt is not glamorous. No one applauds salt. Nobody even notices it on the table. Nobody pays much attention to it until one thing happens. It goes missing. Which is why Jesus pairs this image with light. You are the light of the world. Light, like salt, doesn't argue, doesn't shame the darkness, simply shows up. And by being what it is, changes the entire environment. Many of you remember my mother's fastest and most economical way to clean the kitchen. Turn the lights down. And don't act like you've never done it before. Which brings us back to that uncomfortable question that this text asks each of us. It's about where you and I are most needed. Where is the rot setting in? Not abstractly out there, but concretely. Is it a relationship you've quietly given up on? Is it in the way you speak about people who frustrate you or frighten you? Is it in your social media habits where outrage has replaced curiosity? Is it in your own heart where hope has worn thin and bitterness is starting to feel justified? Jesus doesn't say, notice it and move on. He intentionally cultivated a group of followers to be alive and active in the world, who would be repairers of the breach, as light breaking forth like the dawn, preserving the world as faithfully and reliably as common salt. Which means we don't just observe decay, we engage it. You show up when it would be easier to disappear. You tell the truth when silence would be more comfortable. You offer grace when the situation feels undeserving. And yes, salt can sting. Anyone who's ever put salt on a wound knows that preservation isn't painless. Standing against decay often involves discomfort. It can irritate, it can expose, it can hurt before it heals. And no one knows that better than Jesus. Better than that love that came down from heaven to stand at the center of it all. The one who entered a world already bent toward decay and didn't turn away. That's what love does. The one who stayed close enough to touch lepers, eat with sinners, and absorb the worst the world could offer. That's what love does. On the cross, Jesus doesn't stand above the rock. He enters into it. And in the resurrection, God declares that decay does not get the final word. That's what love does. Which means our calling as salt and light is not of comfort and convenience, safety or popularity. It's shaped like the cross. It looks like loving what others have written off. It looks like hope that persists even when outcomes are uncertain. So don't underestimate, my friends, the holiness of staying when it would be easier to leave. Don't underestimate the power of refusing to become bitter. Don't underestimate the quiet, stubborn grace of a life that slows decay simply by loving well. You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. Not because you're perfect, but because God has chosen to work that way. Now more than ever, the world needs you to do so. Stay salty. Stay lit.